Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really get into the core insights from stacks of research so you don't have to. Now, we all instinctively know that feeling, right? A comforting hug, a simple touch, it makes us feel better. But what if I told you the science behind that simple gesture is actually profoundly complex? It reaches deep into our nervous system, even our brain structure, in ways we're really just starting to fully grasp. Today, we're diving into that hidden power of touch, especially in our increasingly digital world. We seem more connected than ever, overcoming physical distance with all this tech, virtual environments. But are we feeling that connection? Is something vital getting lost?
That's exactly the mission for this deep dive. We're taking a really close look at interpersonal affective touch. That's the emotional side, the motivational aspects of physical contact, and how it's being explored, even integrated into virtual spaces. The big question we're wrestling with is, can technology actually bridge that physical distance gap? Can it even fight loneliness by, well, simulating touch? We've got some fascinating research here, including a very recent study from Scientific Reports and a really compelling piece on the future of intimacy from XP Rise.
And honestly, what the research showed kind of upended our assumptions, especially about how people perceive virtual touch. Yeah, it's definitely not as straightforward as you might think. So let's unpack this.
Okay, it sounds obvious, but it's worth stating.
Mhm.
The biological drive for human connection, often driven by touch, it's wired much deeper than we maybe realize. We are fundamentally social beings. We communicate, interact right from birth. And touch. It really stands out as the most direct, the most intimate channel. It's essential for forming emotional bonds, creating what researchers call social presence.
Social presence, like the actual feeling of togetherness.
Exactly, that sense of really being with someone.
And we saw the flip side of that so clearly during the pandemic, didn't we? Social distancing meant widespread touch deprivation. And that wasn't just, an inconvenience. It was strongly linked to more loneliness, more anxiety for so many people. People literally craved that intimate tactile interaction. It really highlights how vital touch is for just, well, basic psychological well-being.
It's absolutely true. Our skin, it's our largest sensory organ. Remember, it's this crucial interface between our body and the social world around us. And what's really fascinating here is the role of these specialized nerve fibers. They're called C-tactile afferents.
C-tactile afferents. Okay.
Yes, these are slow-conducting fibers in our skin, and they selectively respond to gentle, sort of caress-like touch. Think of a slow, soft stroke, maybe around skin temperature. What's really key is how precisely they're tuned specific speed, low force. And they signal pleasantness directly to the brain. They're basically a privileged pathway for a socially relevant touch.
A privileged pathway. I like that.
Yeah, it directly links what you feel on your skin to your internal emotional state. It powerfully supports social connection. And these afferents, they project right into key areas of the brain involved in social processing and emotion. It's a direct line.
Wow. It's incredible how much communication happens just through touch. Humans are surprisingly good at figuring out emotions, anger, fear, gratitude, love, sympathy, just from touch alone. And it can even change how we see others, right? Like making a smiling face seem friendlier.
Exactly. Or maybe making an angry face seem a bit less threatening. Touch has that power. But when that crucial need isn't met, the consequences, they go beyond just feeling a bit down. That's where loneliness really takes hold. And it's important to remember, loneliness isn't just being physically alone. It's subjective.
Right. You can be in a crowd and feel completely isolated.
Precisely. It's that feeling of being alone.
So what are the actual health consequences then, when loneliness sets in, especially without that physical connection piece?
Well, that's where the data gets quite stark. Loneliness profoundly impacts both mental and physical health. The evidence points to increased inflammation, higher levels of stress hormones like cortisol.
Cortisol, right.
And even actual changes in brain structure, things like reductions in hippocampal volume,
Wow.
gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, white matter in the temporoparietal junction. These are all areas tied to cognitive and emotional regulation. It really shows how vital connection is.
Okay, so given this profound impact of touch and this kind of growing problem of loneliness, even though we're hyperconnected, the really big question becomes, can technology actually step in? Can it fill this very human gap? I remember watching Her back in 2013, the movie where the guy falls in love with his AI operating system and thinking, oh, that would never happen to me. But then dating apps exploded and talking to strangers on your phone became, well, normal, suddenly didn't feel quite so far-fetched, and then the pandemic hit. And it just massively accelerated this whole explosion of virtual intimacy. I mean, Tinder hit its highest number of swipes ever in a single day in March 2020. 3 billion swipes.
3 billion
Yeah.
in one day.
Yeah. And apps like Bumble launched features for virtual dates, Night In, I think it was called. Couples were using novelty apps like Kissinger, that's the one that tries to send kisses over distance.
Right. I've heard
Or
it.
just Zoom and FaceTime. And maybe less surprisingly, sales of sex toys just went through the roof.
People were clearly craving connection, and technology was offering, well, solutions. And this rapid shift, it's fueled a booming industry people are calling Sextech. Dr. Justin Lemler at the Kinsey Institute points out that this sector, it includes everything from sex toys and wearables to VR and robots. It's speeding up intimacy's move online. Think about it. The global sexual wellness market was over $26 billion back in 2017. It's forecasted to hit $37.2 billion by 2025.
Sure.
That's not niche. That's a huge trend.
So what does this future actually look like? I mean, beyond audio porn or wellness apps, haptics technology is getting much better, right? Allowing remote pleasure through vibrations, maybe even built into underwearables.
That's the direction some are exploring, yes.
And you have places like London's Raspberry Dream Lab creating these multisensory cybersex experiences where users see outlines of each other and use haptic stimulators without actual physical touch. And then, of course, robots. David Levy predicted relationships with robots would be normal by 2050. Today, we have sex robots that can hold conversations. Their creators are claiming future ones will be thinking and feeling, like Westworld. Forbes even called them potentially the most disruptive technology we didn't see coming.
It's a bold claim, but it reflects the potential impact. But look, it's not just about sex. This trend covers broader intimacy, too. AI chatbots are providing simulated relationships, offering emotional support for some people.
Simulated relationship.
Yeah. And physical devices like heartbeat pillows that can transmit a partner's heartbeat remotely. They can foster a real sense of connection, even across distances. Or think about the ANA Avatar X Prize. They're aiming to develop avatars for real-time remote presence, so people could, embody an avatar and even date as that avatar.
Wow.
And Niyamadad Kaneku from X Prize suggests something interesting. Maybe the tech that some blame for causing loneliness could actually help solve it, either by fostering new human connections or by improving mental health, which might then enhance our in-person interactions.
Okay, let's try to unpack this a bit. There are clearly potential benefits here. For couples, maybe it adds novelty, which research says is good for relationships.
That's a potential upside.
And for people with intimacy difficulties or disabilities, maybe things like electrode implants for orgasm,
Right.
could be life-changing.
Absolutely, there's therapeutic potential. But with all this, so much of our love and sex lives potentially shifting online, we absolutely have to grapple with the ethical questions.
Definitely.
Privacy, consent, especially with AI or robots. Where's the line between digital fantasy and real-world action? And making sure these technologies are designed fairly without reinforcing gender biases. These are critical things to consider.
Huge considerations. Okay, so if virtual interactions are getting so sophisticated and we know touch is so fundamentally important, it seems logical that simulating touch virtually would enhance connection, right? Make things better. Well, that recent study in Scientific Reports threw a bit of a curveball on that one.
It really did. This is where the research takes a fascinating, unexpected turn. The study by Sudhini and colleagues used IMVU, it's a popular online social world, with these 3D avatars. Participants interacted with an avatar controlled by someone else, someone of the opposite sex. The key part was during a partner dance. In one condition, the virtual touch one, the avatar's dance animations showed physical contact, hands, torsos, legs touching.
Okay.
In the other, the virtual no-touch condition, they danced facing each other, but no physical contact was shown. And here's the crucial bit. The participants felt no actual tactile input. The touch was purely visual, just seeing the avatar's touch.
Right, just seeing it on screen.
Exactly. And they measured things like perceived closeness, how much they liked the interaction, partner, comfort levels, and even physiological stuff, skin conductance, heart rate.
Okay. And the big reveal.
The big reveal was that exchanging virtual touch, just seeing it between the avatars, actually led to lower self-reported closeness and less positive feelings towards the interaction partner.
Lower, not higher. That completely flips the script.
Completely. It directly contradicted their hypothesis, and honestly, what most people might intuitively expect, especially when you think about things like the Midas touch effect in real life, where even a brief touch usually makes things more positive.
So why? What's going on there? Why would seeing touch have a negative effect in this virtual context?
Well, the researchers suggest it connects back to how we perceive touch in general. Even in real life, receiving touch, especially from a stranger, can sometimes feel uncomfortable or unwelcome,
Okay, yeah, context matters.
hugely. The study implies that because there was no actual feeling of touch, the visual cues had to do all the work. And maybe the novelty of the whole interaction, or specific things about the avatar they were dancing with, or even the virtual room itself, might have shifted how that visual touch was perceived, maybe towards aversion.
Aversion. Interesting.
And they also suggest that the type of touch might be key. Think about the duration and the body areas involved in that partner. Dance, hands, torsos, legs touching for a while.
Right, that's quite intimate.
Exactly. That level of intimacy, visually represented but not felt, coming from a stranger avatar, might have just felt inappropriate or awkward. Unlike, say, seeing a brief casual touch on the arm, which might have been fine or even positive. The dance might have been too much, too soon, visually.
But interestingly, the study also found that seeing the touch didn't really change how close people positioned their avatars to each other afterwards, or their immediate physiological arousal, like heart rate spikes during the dance itself.
That's right. The physiological changes they did see, like increased skin conductance, some heart rate variability changes, a lower overall heart rate, seemed more related to just actively being in the virtual world, actively participating, versus just passively watching a video of the same thing.
Ah, so it's the engagement effect.
More likely, yes. But the key takeaway is still critical. Just the visual representation of touch is enough to send interpersonal signals that affect how we feel about others socially.
Mm.
But the context is everything in determining whether that effect is positive or negative. It really confirms that virtual touch isn't just fluff. It has real social consequences.
Okay.
And if we zoom out and connect this to the bigger picture, the idea of integrating affective touch into VR, it goes way beyond just general social stuff. There's huge potential in clinical settings, especially for people dealing with profound social disconnection.
Right. Like you mentioned anorexia nervosa, AN.
Mm-hmm.
Patients often feel really disconnected from their own bodies, from others, and they report finding gentle touch less pleasant. Could VR help there?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Imagine using those VR body illusions where you feel embodied in a virtual avatar that might look different from your real body. Combine that with carefully introduced, maybe gentle, virtual, effective touch. It could possibly help reshape body image, foster connection in a really safe, controlled way. Help them reconnect.
That's fascinating. What about, say, autism spectrum disorders, ASD?
Now, that's another really interesting area. People with ASD often process senses differently, and their responses to touch can be unique, sometimes leading to avoidance. Now, VR is already used for social skills training, but imagine integrating tailored tactile feedback, maybe through those special vests that could give remote hugs or squeezes. It could let individuals with ASD explore pleasant touch experiences without the potential overwhelm of direct human contact. That could be a powerful tool.
A safe space to explore touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the really tough end of the spectrum, interpersonal violence. Victims often experience more loneliness, more touch aversion. Perpetrators might dehumanize others.
Exactly. And VR offers these unique perspective-taking exercises, like embodying in domestic violence. Victim studies show that can improve emotion recognition in offenders. Now, imagine combining that with some form of affective touch simulation. Could it help reduce those self-other boundaries, challenge implicit biases? There's even historical research linking a lack of affective touch in childhood to increased violence later on. It underscores how deep this runs.
It really does.
So ultimately, the debate isn't just a simple, does tech connect or disconnect us? It's more nuanced. It's about how we can develop different forms of social connection using these new multisensory tools. Sure, current haptic devices aren't perfect replicas of human touch. They miss nuances like temperature, grip, texture.
Right, it's not the same.
It's not the same. But research does show that this mediated touch can have similar effects to real interpersonal touch. The goal isn't perfect replication, maybe, but enabling new kinds of meaningful interaction.
But the challenge remains, the ethics, right, as this stuff gets more realistic.
Absolutely.
The potential for blurring lines between online and offline realities, people withdrawing if virtual life becomes too good, and the real risks, like harassment in VR metaverses, which we know already happens.
All of these need really careful thought in how we design and regulate these technologies. It's a critical frontier.
So, what we've really unpacked today shows that these virtual interactions, they're not just simulations anymore, are they? They're becoming new ways we relate to our own bodies and to other people. They're reshaping our whole understanding of how we connect through multiple senses.
Definitely. And while integrating this affective touch into virtual worlds is, well, it's a complex challenge. The potential is huge. Potential for new ways to connect people, new forms of social participation. But those unexpected findings from the IMVU study, they're a crucial reminder. The how and why of virtual touch are much more complicated than just saying, yes, it works. Context, intensity, the nature of the touch itself, it all matters immensely.
Yeah, it's clear we can't just fully replace the power of real human touch with technology. I mean, there's still nothing quite like a hug from someone you love.
Agree.
But this deep dive really shows that technology is evolving incredibly fast. It's getting closer, and it might serve as a vital bridge for connection when physical touch just isn't possible or maybe isn't appropriate. So, the final thought for you listening: as this future of intimacy becomes more and more virtual, how will you navigate these new frontiers of connection? And what role will touch both real and maybe virtual play in your own well being?